Hi there, welcome to QA Box Let's Test, and this video we are going to see different ways to configure our project. So whenever we install Cypress, we get this cypress.json file, and by default it is empty. Still there are a lot of configuration which are set to the default values. So let me open the test runner and click on the settings, then click on configuration, and now in here you see different ways through which you can update the default values. So default values are all these. Then this color coding is used to differentiate from where that value is coming. So for example, this base URL is coming from cypress.json. You can also use cypress.environment.json, and we are going to cover that in an upcoming video because I also have to concentrate on the environment variables in there. So next is environment variables. Then you can also do it from the command line arguments. I'm going to refer that as the environment or the execution, and then from the plugin. All right, and these are all the different configurations, and it's very obvious. Like if you read this one, that this signifies the base URL that you want to use in your either cy.visit or cy.request. Right, then browsers, Chrome Web Security, we have already used that. Then we have got different timeouts. So let's go to Cypress documentation and see what all different things we have in here. The first category is global, and we have base URL, environment, and so on, port number, reporter, retries, and we are going to cover retries in this video. And watch for file changes, right? So when you make a change, your test executes automatically, right? So we are watching it with the help of obviously Webpack. And then we have got different timeouts, like default command timeout. So whenever you write any action command, or any cy.get or contains, this is a default time. You can override that. If your application is slow, then you can increase this time. Same way you have got this execution, task, page load timeout, right? Request timeout, and so on. Then you also have the settings for different folder locations, right? So we work with fixtures, and this is the default path they have set. You can overwrite that. So then you can also ignore certain test file, integration folder, plugins, and so on. Then we have this for the screenshot, like where do you want to save your screenshot when your thing running in the CI mode or in the headless mode, right? By using the command Cypress run. We have not used that. We have been working on Cypress open, so we're going to cover that too in an upcoming video. Then we have got these video level configurations which we can use, and then browser specific things. Okay, so these are the different things that we can configure. Now, what are the different ways in which we can configure that, or specifically what are the different places from where we can configure this? So in this diagram at the bottom you have cypress.json. This is the by default file, right? So whenever you start your execution, all the configurations are being read from here. Now you can create multiple configuration file, right? Something like this. I have already created one more with the name cust cypress.json. So in one of the run, I'll show you how you can invoke this configuration file. Okay, then you can pass in the configuration from the config line. You can pass any specific configuration, or you can pass the collection, right? So you can do that as well. Then we have this cypress.config command through which you can apply the unique configuration specific to that particular test suite. Then there are few more ways, like in in this video series this far, whenever we have written those describe and hit block, we have provided only two arguments. The first argument was always the name of either the test suite or the test case, and the second argument was always the callback function. Right now we are going to add one more argument in the middle of those two, and in there we are going to pass in the configurations we want to change or apply to that. If we are applying it to the test case, then that particular configuration will be applied only to that specific test case, and if you want to apply it to the whole suite, then you mention that configuration in the describe argument section. This is our current cypress.json file. What I've done is I've created a folder inside which I've got created this very simple basic test case. So all we are doing in here is cy.visit, but now we are going to start passing in those configurations, and then we are going to learn the precedence order. And this is, by the way, the precedence order. So if you write something in here and you then pass the configuration from the terminal or the execution environment, then it is going to override this. And same way, this is going to override both of these, and the top one is going to override all of these. This is how it is being set up, and that's what we are going to see in this video. Okay, so now the first thing is, let us change the path of our test cases. So where do we store our test cases? In the integration folder. Okay, and by default you see you have this value, but our test cases are stored inside this config demo, config underscore demo. Let us save this, and now if we open this, we're only seeing these two test cases. Okay, earlier we were seeing these many, right? Now we are not pointing to this, and now this is our test case folder. Okay, so this is being changed. Now first let's understand where we have to enter the value. So by default this is what we get, right? So in here we write the name, and then this is the callback function. Now I'm just going to add one more comma in here. All right, so now look at this. So this is what we have been using this far. So we have to go to this one, and now this is what we can pass. Okay, so in here we can pass in certain configurations. Okay, so and same way in the test cases as well, you can pass in the configuration. So let us see that as well. All right, so in here you could see we have this option. Okay, so we're going to pass values in here. So I'm going to just remove this. We're going to keep this thing as it is. Okay, so we have to set these configurations. So this is something that I'm going to write in here as the second argument. Okay, then the next thing that we have to do is, this is the line, all right, which is going to enable things at the suite level. But then what is the difference? In here also we have applied this base URL, and here also we are updating the base URL. So first of all, let's understand this command. Cypress.config will return you if you leave it empty like this. Okay, like this. So it is going to return you everything that is there in the config file. Now you can either retrieve a value or you can set a value. So for retrieve a value, you just have to provide the key name. Okay, just like this, right? You can provide anything. Or if you want to set it, so you have to provide two arguments to that. So this is the key which you want to update with this value. All right, this is how it works. Now let me grab this URL and put it as the second argument of this hit function. All right. So now let us understand this code. What has happened this far? So for this test case, we are saying that base URL has to be this. Okay. So when we visit CY, this should get executed. Then we are saying that at the cypress.config, so when you do this outside all of your it blocks and under the describe block, then you're saying that, hey, for this particular test suite, this should be the base URL. Means it is applicable to all the test cases. But then we have also provided in the base URL in here is the second argument. So basically this and this have got higher precedence than this command as clearly described in here. Alright, so these one would be overriding all the other configurations. Alright, so now what do we have in our configuration? So in here we have just this React Redux real world IO. So let me also show you the package.json. So in here I have created these three scripts. The first one is test Cypress open, which we have been using this far, and the other one is wherein I have the configurations being passed from the command line like this. So this is how you are going to pass in the configuration from command line. So hyphen config, and then you are going to provide, let's say, the page load and like this, right? And if you want to pass in an object in here which contains, more key and value configurations, then you have to stringify that. So you have to provide the stringified version of that in here, and then it would work. Okay, so this is how you are going to do it. If you just have one value, you just provide that. If you have multiple values, you can use comma. If you want to give it a more nicer way, then you have to stringify that object. All right, the last one is basically wherein just replacing the default file with this new file which I've created. Okay, so currently this one is running. So let us close this and execute this one. So now we have base URL present at all the levels, means it is present in the cypress.json. We are also passing it from the terminal. Then we have also used Cypress.config base URL and provided a different value. And in here also we have different value, right? So we have provided 5 different base URLs. So to run this, I have to use the command, because this is my custom command, npm run and testcfg. Okay, let us run this and wait for test runner to open up. Alright, so let us execute this now. I hope I have saved my changes. Okay, so this register page has been launched. So let us check our test cases. So we have this register page in here. Okay, let us now start taking these out one by one. Okay, let me store it in here. So now the competition is between this and this. Okay, because the other are at the lower precedence. So let me save this and run this again. Let us see now what would be launched. So we get www.google.com. Let's see. So this one is being launched. Okay. So this has got the higher precedence. So second parameter of describe and it always get higher precedence. Okay. All right. Now the competition is between this Cypress.config and the value that we have passed from here. All right. So here the base URL is reddit.com. Okay. Now let us execute that. Right, so we got reddit.com, which has come from the configuration, which is coming from that environment variable. Okay. Now the other thing is we also have these configurations available at the individual commands. But the thing that we have to understand, not every configuration is available in here. Okay. So for example, in here we have this timeout. Okay. And we also have different timeouts in the cypress.json file. So I just change it to 2000. And see, it depends where you are applying this timeout. So if you are applying the timeout to the cy.visit, and cy.visit basically considers the page load timeout. So in here, if we just open the timeout section, and there are different timeouts. In here you could see. So if you are going to use cy.get and then pass in that timeout, then it would refer to this. Okay. And if you are going to use the timeout for cy.visit, it is going to refer to this timeout. Alright, so now if I run this, see what is going to happen is this page will fail to load within 2 seconds and hence will get the error. Alright, so you see this has failed. So these are the different places where we have got access to the configuration object. Okay, and there are a lot of properties available into that, and you can change that. Alright, so now the next thing that we have to do is this retries. Okay, so cypress.config, either you can pass in the key and value combination, or you can just leave it empty, or you can just provide the key depending upon what are you trying to do. But you can also set multiple values in here with the help of this object. So this retry is what? Let us see that. So number of times to retry a failing test case. Okay, and you can provide the values to both run mode and open mode. We have been working with open mode, we see the UI, right? So in here we are going to set a value. So either you can do it like this, so that you can set different values to run and open mode, or you can also do it like this. Okay, so that means that one is set to both open and run mode. Okay, so you can do both. Now this is the first test case. All we are doing is, so we are expecting 1 to equal 2, and obviously that would fail. So in here what we have done is, because this configuration now we know that is applied to the suite level. So we are working in the open mode. So this test case would be executed one more time. All right. All right. And you will see how simple it is in Cypress to achieve this functionality. All right. So you could see first attempt was failed and there was one more attempt. The first attempt was the normal one and the second attempt happened because of this. If you change it to 2, you will see that thing has been executed 3 times. All right. So there are 3 attempts. All right. That's how it's been implemented. Now let us look at one more test case, because I mentioned that we can also pass in this configuration as the second argument. Right. So what I've done is in here I have created this object. Okay. And you have to use the configuration retries and it is going to point to this here. Okay. But in the new JavaScript, if both the key and value are same, so either let us run this first. So you can run it like this. Okay. And in here now you see there are 5 attempts. Okay. So because the open mode in here is set to 4, and therefore first time it's executed on its own, and then 4 times because of this, and hence there are 5 attempts. So in now I was talking about this, so both key and value are same, so you can safely get rid of this. You run this, right? You still get the same. Okay. And let me just change it to 6 to my point, so there would be 7 attempts, as you could see. Okay. So this is about your retries. Now the only thing that is left is, what if I want to pick configuration from a different file? Alright, so we have to stop this first, because I have created a different command in here. So in here, see what I'm doing? Cypress.open is pretty much the same, and then hyphen hyphen config file, and then now you have to provide the full path of that file. Okay, so this is the full path of the file. Now open that first. So in here, see what are we doing? Of course, I've added the schema so that I can get the intelligence. Then base URL is this, right? So it is going to launch the test retries how it works page from Cypress, and of course it is still pointing to this one from demo. So I have to do what? I have to execute the first test case now. Okay, but in the first test case, let us see if we have passed anything in here. So let me just remove this timeout because it will not be able to load within 2 seconds. So we have all these turned off. Great. All right, so now I have to run the other command, which is npm run, and I have to use the name this one. Let us run this and wait for the test runner to open up. Okay, let us execute the first test case. There you go. So the new page has been launched. Okay, we are not referring to the base URL mentioned in cypress.json, which is this. We are referring to the base URL mentioned in this cust cypress.json, which is this week. Alright, I hope you like this. Thank you so much.